All right. And then we can also record this just for posterity's sake. Steak? Sure, I'll have a steak. Okay. And, oh, okay. Yikes, I'm coming through loud and clear. Okay. Here we are, everybody. And let me start the record. Here we go. Uno, dos, tres. Everybody wave. Happy Astrology Day from New Paradigm Astrology. All right. This is our free webinar. It's March 20th of 2018, and the sun has just gone into Aries. Ow! And we've got some great astrology for you today, and we've got some great offers and discounts and specials and all kinds of things going on to celebrate astrology, celebrate the equinox, and all kinds of different things. And I think what I'm going to do is switch over to speaker view so that people can get a full shot of who's ever talking. Here we go. And goodbye, dream team. We'll see you in a little bit. I'm just going to talk a little bit first. Today we have, like I said, a group of wonderful, fantastic astrologers. Each one of us is going to be talking about a little different aspect of the astrology that is going on now and in 2018. And keep you a little updated, with Uranus and Chiron and Mars and Mercury retrograde. We're each going to take a little bit of a different topic for a few minutes, give you a little blast of astrology, and then offer you some special treats at the end of our talk. And I wanted to begin with, what I've been really looking at strongly these last few weeks here is this Chiron moving into the sign of Aries. And it's going to be there for 8 years. Yes, Chiron is its farthest out, away from the sun. It's outside the orbit of Uranus. Yes, and farthest away. And it comes back in closest to the sun in Libra. It spends 2 years in Libra, like, 3 Scorpio, 4 Sag, 5 Capricorn. It slows down as it gets farther away. So as we know in astrology, there are no accidents. This is highly symbolic. And I treat Chiron as the wounded healer. The wounded healer. And it goes around and it heals our wounds through very often a healing crisis. And it brings up to the surface. Chiron did descend into the underworld. He's one of the few figures that descended and resurrected out from the underworld. Has a tremendous amount to do with transformation. And he's going into Aries next month. This is the beginning of a new 51-year cycle. So we can go back to 1967. Okay, we can go back to the mid-60s, baby. And we have done a whole Chiron cycle since the mid-60s. And, we can see some parallels between now and the 60s and some of the wounds that want to be healed. And when I think of Aries, okay, ruled by Mars, both having to do with the masculine, the warrior. This is a crisis with the masculine. And I know that we're all going through, the whole women's reemergence, okay, and the end of the patriarchy and this whole transition into a new paradigm. And I just want to say that you cannot have, yes, it's like you can't have healthy, healthy feminine, with a wounded masculine, just like you can't have a healthy masculine with a wounded feminine. I mean, they go together very nicely, as a matter of fact. And what we're going to be seeing as Chiron moves through Aries, yes, is that there is a challenge here with this end of the patriarchy that men too are going through a big, big crisis. I don't know if you know some of the statistics, but in the United States, the sperm count has gone down 60%. There is 60% less sperm now than there was in the 1970s. Yeah? I don't know if you knew that. The testosterone levels are declining an average of 1% a year since 1987. Yeah? This is a massive decline. There is a 30% decline in men who are 40 years old of their testosterone. So we're looking at big situations, not only this Pluto and everything going on with Capricorn and Cancer, which is the family axis and the gender selection axis, but now we're having Chiron move into Aries, which is square to that axis, and it's going to be bringing up, okay, that we have so many children being raised by single mothers, and they don't have a masculine model. And even the men that have been brought up without fathers, without that model, and I did a whole thing on this, the symbolic and the imaginary with psychoanalysis and the necessity of a connection, between the offspring and the father figure. So in the external laws and rules and boundaries. So what I'm seeing here is that over these next 8 years, we are going to be seeing, yes, challenges with what is Mars and Aries. That masculine energy is potency. And this is women too. I'm not just talking about men, I'm talking about the masculine, and women have a masculine side also. And we will all be dealing and working to heal our feelings of I don't deserve to exist, or I don't deserve to get what I want. I don't deserve to have my desires met. And I feel impotent, that what I want or what I desire doesn't make any difference and it doesn't matter. So why should I bother? And this, of course, yes, leads to depression. And this is another point that is going up, yes, with men in particular, right? And we also have obesity. And we also have a connection between escapism and marijuana and other drugs, that lower the libido and that lower our drive and that lower our Aries energy to really assert ourselves, not to mention diet and exercise, sitting in front of screens day after day after day after day. So I believe that we are going to all be looking at, working with, and dealing. And you want to see where Aries falls in your chart. You want to see what house Chiron is moving through. Right now, like I say, it's going to be approaching 0 degrees of the cardinal of Aries. So you want to be looking now, okay, 27, 28, 29, okay, of Gemini, Virgo, Sag, and Pisces. And 0, 1, 2, 3 of Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. Look at your charts. And that's the other thing that, this astrology day is all about. We want to celebrate astrology because astrology is so awesome. And it can help us identify, diagnose. It can even come in with remedies and therapies. But it helps us to know ourselves, to know the collective consciousness and what's going on. It helps to give meaning and a whole continuity to our experience that is super, super, super valuable. So we are really glad to have you on board with us today. And we're going to just, go through, spend a few minutes, each one of the dream team with you. I'd like to introduce Christina. Christina is a dream team member who is going to talk to us all about Mercury retrograde, and take it away, Christina.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Kaypacha. Ooh, my own Chiron in Aries is getting really charged up there because it's going to have my return here. Not for a while though, but those of us with Chiron in Aries, you know, I was born in 75. I can feel that Chiron coming. And what's great about being part of the New Paradigm community is we can all share our experiences because we can understand what the archetypes are trying to tell us, you know, what the messages they have for us. But really it's about being together in community and sharing our experiences that can really help us to integrate the wisdom of the astrology, because the astrology is simply symbols, right? It's really us who are living those symbols. And so anyway, for today, I drew the short straw and I got Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde, actually, I like to talk about Mercury retrograde. But as we know, in pop culture and our pop astrology culture, right, everyone freaks out about Mercury retrograde. I mean, the good thing is that people are actually, you know, paying attention, right? So even a handful of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when I would talk about Mercury retrograde, and nobody would have a clue what it was about. Now people have kind of a clue, but there is a lot of hype around it, right? But Mercury is the messenger of the gods, and there's always a message for us during Mercury retrograde, right? Aaron Sullivan says that Mercury direct is the cycle of attention, and Mercury retrograde is the cycle of awareness. So there's something that's meant to bring us to deeper awareness. It's when our subconscious material comes up to our conscious mind, right? So the first thing we want to do is look at our chart. And if you know your astrology chart, see where Mercury is retrograding. It's in Aries. It stations retrograde on Thursday in a couple of days, March 22nd. And the first half of this phase is usually one where there's more call to introspection, right? We really want to be turned inward more. And we start to notice, you know, all these little snafus and things going wrong, and we can get really anxious because Mercury does deal with systems, and part of those systems, one of them is even our, you know, our nervous system. And any planet, when it's going retrograde, you know, it sort of takes away what we expect, but it also can give us some serendipity. And that's especially true of Mercury, because Mercury deals with our mind, our communication, how we think. And so it's a time to be rethinking and to review and revisit things in our lives, especially in the area, as I said, where the house is transiting. And Mercury in Aries is about figuring out how we relate to that Aries archetype, that directness, and what Kaypacha was mentioning about sort of that masculine energy, that impulse that we all have, right? We can be very impulsive. We can say things, maybe things just spit out of our mouths before we can really think about it, right? And what's interesting is today, Mercury and Venus are conjunct in Aries, right? And so when Mercury stations retrograde, it'll just be a couple degrees from that conjunction with Venus. And so there will be a sort of Venusian sort of theme to this transit where we have, you know, our relationships may come into play. And here's a paradox, right? We've got Aries, which is all about me, what I want, my needs, going after what I want. And Venus wants to smooth things over. Venus wants to relate, wants to love, you know, wants to tell you how I feel, right? Like, what's in it for me? What's in it for us, kind of thing, right? And so when we move toward this, or move forward in this Mercury retrograde phase, around April 1st is the conjunction with the sun. I always look for the conjunction with the sun because that, number one, tells you it's halfway over. And it's also a time of illumination. That is when often the message is illuminated, right? All that stress and all that confusion can suddenly come to a point of illumination. And then after that, we want to sort of, after that second half, which will be until April 15, that's when we want to put the pedal to the metal. We're like, okay, I'm done introspecting. I'm ready to fly, especially with Mercury and Aries, right? I'm ready to get back to normal. I'm ready to get back to work. I'm ready to get my mind together again. But there still is a need to sort of take things slow, take things at a certain pace. There's always this danger of rushing too much, not thinking things through during a Mercury retrograde. Now, the beauty of that is sometimes where we hold ourselves back, we can suddenly just throw caution to the wind. And sometimes we can have some breakthroughs because of that, right? So that's part of the magic of the Mercury retrograde. We're no longer holding ourselves back. Maybe we have certain bursts of confidence or sudden ideas that turn out to be, really great ideas for us. But when it comes to those things, like everyone says, don't sign contracts during Mercury retrograde, don't make any big commitments, don't make any big decisions. We can't stop our lives, 3 times a year for 3 weeks out of, 3 times a year, right? We have to still make decisions. We have to still make agreements. We just want to be a little more cautious that we might not be thinking entirely clearly. We may be missing certain details, but we can still make this time work for us if we have the faith that, this is a time, especially in Aries, for us to go for what we want, right? For us to say that which maybe we've been holding back. And as I said, relationships are something we want to pay attention to. And we really want to just really rethink where we are in our lives. Are we the pioneer, which is Aries, that we want to be in our lives? And this can be a really great sort of warm up in a way to that Chiron in Aries, because that again will test our pioneering ability, and that from a very internal place. And so, Mercury being one of the personal planets, it's more on our conscious level, right? So we can really use this time to be journaling, really reflecting on where we can make magic happen in our lives, and again, just sort of throw caution to the wind, have some of that Aries pioneering excitement behind it. And just, again, living without fear. I mean, I think when we're talking about the wisdom of astrology, it's taking away all of that fear. There's enough fear mongering out there, right? And so that's what this community has really it's helped me to really see how we can just really brainstorm together as a community, what synchronicities, what serendipities have come through this Mercury retrograde. And that's something that a community like New Paradigm can be really, really invaluable for. So if it's not too salesy, I hope I just want to tell you I want to invite you to join us to the New Paradigm community. This is a perfect, I joined it when I was just starting out as a professional astrologer, and it's been so invaluable to me to have this community of support. So I hope that you'll join us.
Yeah, baby. Thanks, Christina. Absolutely. Beautiful. Let's pass it on over. We've got Ari Moshe is going to be talking to us about Uranus, and how it really operates. I love this. He described this talk to me, and he said, I'm going to talk about how it operates on universal resonance.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Christina, for saying that you can sign contracts during Mercury retrograde. We can, and that's a big mistake that's often made with astrology, where both in terms of what does this transit mean, or what does it mean to have this placement, we often think in these absolutes, and we miss the greater truth that everything's contextual. So that's a part of what I'm going to speak about now. Uranus rules astrology. So anyone who's really into astrology, often there's a strong and prominent Uranus in their chart. I want to speak a little bit about how Uranus corresponds to universal resonance and does not inherently have anything to do with our notions and experience of time, space, reality. This is actually very important for understanding the basis for astrology in the first place. So I created a nice little spiral for all of us. Let's call this spiral, can you see it? Yeah, right? Everything, like the universe, okay? It's just what is. It's all one, it's all together. Now, let's take this spiral and draw 12 pies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, assume this is 12. What we've just done is we've taken the wholeness, which is undivided, undifferentiated, just is what it is. Whoa. And we put it into categories. Let's call each pie an archetype. Now, take this oneness, which exists. It's not about time, has nothing to do with space. It's just together. It's just what is. And expand it infinitely in all directions, right? So suddenly we have time and space. And that division that we created, let's say you take one of those slices, you call it the Aries slice. Now that Aries slice is like everywhere, right? It's divided up in this infinite spiral that goes in all directions. From the point of view of human consciousness, that's mostly identified with the immediate time-space reality. There's a tendency to personalize everything that arises according to our own projections, our own stories. But from the point of view of the intelligence of creation, there's an inherent impersonalness to everything that arises here. And so from our experience, we might be walking down the street one day and Mars is transiting our, first house, let's say, squaring our Neptune, and we hit our foot on something, get into an accident. So that's happening in a moment in time. But if you ravel up this spiral of everything, that moment in time lines up with perhaps, maybe one day I'll make this a computer graphic. It lines up in time with an energy that fits a whole range of space in this spiral, right? So what's happening right now may have an archetypal resonance with something that was 2,000 years ago and something that will be in 500 years. When we work with astrology, we're taking the isness and we're categorizing. And by the way, Gemini is categorization, right? Nothing in the creation is saying, I am a star, I am a zodiac sign. We are ascribing these associations. Thus, there are many, many ways to categorize the cosmos. And according to how we categorize it, will give us a map for understanding how it manifests within time and space. But it inherently is so what it is that it actually holds the space for infinite kinds of categorizations. So what's happening right now is inherently a synchronicity. And I know Maurice will be telling some stories about synchronicity and astrology. Everything is a synchronicity. Most of the time, we don't realize it because we're not aware of the full story. I'm going to share my chart and just show you something really cute here. How do I share my chart? Is that possible?
You see share screen?
Yeah, you can share your screen, but you have to have your chart on your solar fire.
It is.
Then you hit the share screen button and
I'm not seeing it. Well, I'll just describe it because I'm not seeing it. So basically, when I was in high school, I had this long distance relationship with a woman, and I was an Orthodox Jew, she was Orthodox, and it was kind of taboo. At a certain point, she began speaking about this made up character. She gave him a false name called Pluto. It was this guy in Vienna that she was also having this romance with. And at that time, Pluto was moving over my south node. So I was going through a Pluto transit. And years later, when I was researching that time in my life, south node has a lot to do with our past, where we're coming from. It's in my third house, which is phone calls. So this synchronicity is happening. It's a Pluto transit. She's talking about Pluto. And it was this experience of great loss and devastation and pain and attachment, all kinds of Pluto things. I had no clue that there's a Pluto transit. We dream. We often get these archetypal symbols. An elephant in a red room talking to your brother. And we oftentimes try to interpret it literally, or we try to grasp at an interpretation that we can understand, rather, not literally. But most of the time, we don't have full awareness of the archetypal energies that are speaking right now because we're personalizing it. We think, oh, there's a message for me. What's actually happening is the universe creation does what it does, and it is what it is. It's actually, if you look at my spiral, let's kind of put it all together again. It's already what it is. Everything's already been created. And we often think of it as process, whereas in fact, at the right moment, at the right time, we're going to reach that point in the spiral that lines up with this energy that has always been. And so these archetypal symbols, blood, the idea of war, accidents, the planet called Mars, adrenaline, running, a past lifetime when you were a gladiator, a future life where you're playing a game and you're really into it. The idea of starting something new, that's all the archetype of Mars. And so these symbols show up in every, besides for just time and space, we have anatomy. We have every aspect of anything that exists. And that's why Uranus is astrology. And what happens when we study astrology is we develop an objective, impersonal awareness of how consciousness itself is evolving. We really develop a profound awareness. Someone just wrote, as within, so without. It's so true. There's no separation. So I just want to close and just offer one piece of gratitude to my teacher, Jeffrey Wolf Green. A lot of us on this panel actually studied from him, and he brought forth this paradigm of evolutionary astrology. So because it's Astrology Day, I'm called to honor my teacher who brought forth this paradigm, which is really about working with astrology as a way of understanding the soul's evolutionary journey. Where are we coming from? What are the same exact archetypal resonances manifesting now, reflecting our own consciousness in our own realization of self? All right, much love to you all. Thank you.
Yeah, baby. Thank you.
Someone just said, I didn't say anything about Uranus. Just to clarify, that was all about Uranus.
Right.
You'll learn more as you learn more.
For sure. Fantastic. All right. Now, unfortunately, one of our dream team members, Sol Jonassen, lives over in Norway, where it is now like 2 o'clock in the morning. But she loves everybody so much, and she loves to share that she gave us a little recording. So we're going to play that. Are you ready, set, and here's Sol. Yeah.
Hello everyone, I'm Sol, and due to the time zones I could not make it live, but I am contributing with a little video here to celebrate that particular day a year we call Astrology Day. And it is definitely a joy for anyone who loves astrology to have its own day. I mean, come on, we have like a day that is Astrology Day. Maybe it's just among astrologers that we celebrate Astrology Day. Who knows? But who cares? At least we have another excuse to go out and say, yay, we love astrology. And I certainly do. I so many times I'm just, wow, this is so interesting. I can't believe it. How can this be? How can you make up? You can't make up this shit, as Patricia Walsh would say. You just can't make up this shit. And that's a good point. You can't. It would demand too much imagination. But still, you know, astrology is amazing. We don't know the causality of astrology. We don't know why it works. Hopefully we will in the future. And, you know, the way that things are moving for the time being, I'm most certain that we will see eventually that, okay, so that's the reason why we are going through different themes, and this is the reason why we're going through changes that are reflected in the cycles on the sky. It is a very ancient knowledge, astrology, you know, although the popularity of astrology has gone in cycles, you know, it hasn't always been this popular as it is today. And, you know, today it's very popular because it's everywhere on the internet. Everybody loves to read about their own signs. Everybody's looking for themselves. We live in an age where knowing yourself becomes incredibly important, not just because you matter to yourself, but also because the more you know about yourself, the easier it will be to live in harmony with the rest of the world. Easy logic there, right? But still, it makes sense, right? To get to know yourself. And this magnificent tool that is the blueprint of the astrology shows the potential of that moment that you were born. It shows that you are unique in your sense, because nobody were born from exactly the same spot that you were born, even though you were born as a, you know, as a twin. You didn't come out at the same time, even if it's just seconds that separated you. And and you will have some features that are the same, and then there will be some things that are uniquely different and completely just you, because you matter. You are alive. That's it. It's not difficult. But from an atheistic point of view, we are just here and then we're not. It's the real big question. Will consciousness survive after death? That's the big question, huh? Yeah, so I guess we'll find out one day, won't we? For now, we can just use the astrology as a tool to understand the coming cycles, to understand the future, to understand the past, to understand the now. Now, there is always a danger to try to use the astrology to control the future. Human beings, we know everything is changing all the time, and it can be stressful. You know, we never know what we have. Like, will there ever be some stability? Will there ever be a time where everything is just peaceful? When, you know, who can promise that? What we know is what we see. We see a world in constant change. We see something happening all over the place that is both scary and it's nice, it's beautiful. Some of the things that are happening inside human beings today is really nice. People are totally embracing, again, their spiritual aspect, the spiritual side of life. I'm certain you can cut religion out of people's lives, because a lot of religion is based on dogmas. It's based on rules of conduct that might not always be applicable to your life. There's also a lot of politics inside of religion, and there's also a power aspect to it, and that can be very, very destructive for a lot of people. But spirituality, in my experience, you cannot change humans' spiritual nature. You cannot separate them from their souls. You can try, of course, by denying the nature of the soul. But that leads only to deeper suffering for that particular human being than you can ever imagine. It's like being cut off from the life source itself. So this is what I think we are exploring right now. We're exploring that we have some connection to life around us. Then we are exploring these cycles that we are all part of, but uniquely responding to on an individual level. And that's where astrology can help us to make more conscious choices. How do we want to react when we have a strong Mars aspect or Mercury is going retrograde, which is part of the current zeitgeist for, as we are talking. So let's just explore a little bit about, the pros and cons of Mars, for instance. Right now we have Mars in Capricorn. When I get up in the morning, the sun will be in Aries, which is a Mars sign. And these two, they square each other. A square is a 90 degrees aspect, which means they are talking to each other. When two planetary principles are talking to each other, they get together in a way. And the sun is life, the sun is purpose, the sun is, the reason why you're here. I'm here to be creative, right? I'm here to participate. I'm here to find meaning. And Mars is the principle of action. In the body, Mars is the adrenals, and the adrenals is our capacity to act when needed. So these two principles coming together, and Aries being the sign of new beginnings, might inspire you to just go out of your comfort zone and do something, that you didn't previously think you had the courage to do. So it's like a time for a change, like a real breakthrough. It can be a real breakthrough period for you. It can be a time where you really see that if I want to make changes, it's up to me. I have to act on my dreams. The challenge with too much Mars energy going on is that it's just too much energy coming through. It's too intense. There's too much pressure. Remember, Mars is in Capricorn, the sign of responsibility. So you might feel that you're completely overwhelmed with responsibility and it's just too much stress. And that's when you can have a burnout. So that's what we need to be cautious about, how you respond and react to this particular transit. We don't know yet because you have your level of consciousness and you have your particular energy chart that is you. So you might be not so influenced by it because it's not touching any particular, important points in your chart, or you might be super influenced by it because it's really pushing every button in your chart. Later on, Mars will go into Aquarius, and there it will go retrograde in the mid-May. When something goes retrograde, it goes in a way inwards. It's a more introverted aspect of that planetary principle. And it also, it goes retrograde in the sign of Aquarius, which is already a mental sign. It's already a sign of control over the instincts. And it's going retrograde and it's going to cross the nodal axis, which is also a very important point. In the world of astrology, it matters a lot. It enhances anything that touches the nodal axis, or it enhances that planetary principle. So what we are seeing the coming months is that Mars will go through an intense focus. There's going to be a lot of focus on Mars in particular. Not just, acting, reacting, but when it goes retrograde mid-May and it stays in this retrograde feel all the way until August, and it won't leave the sign of Aquarius until November, we have during the coming six months, we have Mars being in a very small part of the sky, and it goes backwards over the degrees that it just crossed. So it's going backwards a little bit, going back on some of your previous actions. It's thinking over things instead of just acting on them. And it can really bring some healing if you've been personally involved in some conflicts. You might also question your own reactive patterns. Mars can be that part which is a little defensive. It's the part of us that can be a little aggressive because we are trying to protect that which we feel is being threatened. And it is also a principle of war in that sense. But when it goes retrograde in the sign of Aquarius, it also promises that we might find some new solutions to very old problems on this earth. I'm not thinking everything will be solved, immediately, but there might be some process that takes us into a more, finding solutions. How do we create peace, not just on earth, but we start with our lives, right? How do you choose your reactions just to make better choices? There's so much energy going out the window because we fight left and right. We fight for justice, our justice, and we fight everything that we perceive as an enemy. Now, with Mars going retrograde, the way that we perceive life and, conflict might change. And that would be a great liberation of creative energy. You might use it for better purposes. And that would be my wish for this coming quarter of a year, especially. So have a happy astrology day and bon voyage through the coming months.
All right, Soul. Wow, I love this technology. It's fantastic, man. Here she is talking to us from her sleep. And of course, that could be Mars in Aquarius too. I did want to mention one more thing since she was talking about it, and that is anger and violence. And I will say that with Chiron going into Aries, yes, one of the ways that we deal with our wounds is overcompensation. If we feel that we are not heard, or that we are that our assertions and our putting ourselves forward is not getting us anywhere, we can overcompensate. So if we feel inadequate, we can try to be bigger. If we feel weak, we can put on outrageous displays of bravado, yeah, but it's false bravado. So we may also be seeing outrageous displays, yes, of violence, through this time period, as people feel very impotent, disabled, and overcompensate by doing crazy, wild things. So it is another reason that it's very good for us to be looking at the astrology of our times and see when these things are coming about and when they're aspecting our charts and how we can best work with our own energy. And this is another great reason why we all want to become astrologers. Maurice Fernandez is one of my many teachers, has been in astrology for a very long period of time. He has his own evolutionary astrology course that he teaches, a number of books that he's written, and he is with us today to talk about how wonderful it is how to become an astrologer. And then he's got a surprise at the end. Maurice, take it away.
Do I? Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, the whole New Paradigm community. I will stress that I believe it's very important that we have Astrology Day, not only for us, but to remind us that this is really hard work. And astrology is such an important tool that can literally, help guide humanity. And even if we start, in our small community and only among those who practice astrology, celebrating astrology is honoring our craft. And it's about remembering that in some ways, we are the modern day priests. We interpret the message from the heavens and serve as translator of these coded symbols into human language. So celebrating Astrology Day is paying respect to that practice and acknowledging that we were gifted astrology. And this gift allows us to understand the creation. So I will share some of my slides. Let me know if you can see if you can see everything. Right? Can you see the slides?
Yes, we got it.
Okay, great. So just interestingly, Astrology Day was decided, it was decided that it would be on the equinox day, the beginning of this tropical zodiac. And it's interesting that both symbols of the equinox, Aries and Libra, reflect that equality and that balance between extremes. As you see, the Aries symbol is on the one hand the horns of a ram, but it's also a fountain. It's the division of equal day, equal night. And as Gemini Brett will say, it is also the emergence surge. So there, it's basically what springs from the horizon and basically is divided east, north, and south. So Libra symbol is obviously a setting sun, as well as the scales. So we see both the symbols, you know, capturing the equinox balance, interestingly. And then, as Ari Moshe was mentioning, Uranus and the archetype of Aquarius, the 11th house in our chart, represents astrology as a whole, but also our relationship with astrology. It's interesting that many people who have Uranus in the 12th house or Aquarius in the 12th, or just very strong Uranus presence on angles on their nodes or in basically prominent places, are often very drawn to astrology and sometimes choose it as a profession. And the reason, as Ari touched on it, to me, if we celebrate Astrology Day, part of the gift of Uranus and the reason it's associated with astrology is that it allows us to look at our lives from a distance. You look at your chart and you see like a X-ray. You see through the layers, through your resistance, the truth is in your chart and you are fated to your chart. You can't change it. A Scorpio cannot become a Sagittarius. Even if by progression you may experience it, your chart is not negotiable. What is negotiable is how you use it. And that's where the levels of consciousness comes into play. But the gift of Uranus is the ability to witness your own existence. And as you have clarity as a witness, as opposed to the performer, being on stage, which is the Leo that says, live your life. And Aquarius says, look at your life. And that's where you go. You go up to the stars, you go up to the heavens, and you look at yourself from above. And from that vantage point, you see the truth. So that level of detachment is basically the opportunity to see truth with clarity. And that is the gift of Uranus, clarity. Seeing things as they are. So I would like to read the astrologer's oath, which is, it's published in the book published by Opa, the professional astrologer. I highly recommend it to everyone. You can find it on Amazon or on the Opa website. But it's, this is the day where we have to say this. So let me do it. The infinity of the sky has cohesion. The astral planes reveal a logic to which nature fully resonates and aligns. If few are initiated in this art of interpretation, of celestial science with existential meaning. I am one. I recognize the privilege and responsibility to service humanity as an astrologer, to be the channel between, above, and below, to remain grounded, clear of prejudice, and open-hearted. Respectfully, gracefully, and truthfully, I pledge to assist those who seek higher guidance, direct them to the space, the time, and the way, as depicted in the map of geocosmic cycles. I will enlighten them in the perspective that despite trials and tribulations, their lives are intrinsic to an intelligent cosmic order. And these suggestions shall be made to the best of my humble understanding. And whether venerated or depreciated publicly in this task as an astrologer, I shall not falter, aware of the merit and of this honorable calling. So we live in times where astrology is misunderstood, vilified. It's either seen as worshiping the devil by religion or a pseudoscience by scientific people. And yet we know that it's a key to the understanding of our own existence. So why is it important to continue this work, not just for ourselves, but also all of you maybe will choose this as a profession, because during our times, and our parents didn't ask us, would you like to be an astrologer when you grow up? We didn't think about that because it wasn't on the table, it wasn't offered. But today this is changing. And why is it important that you take astrology seriously, that you get certified, that you learn and really don't just get your freebies online, but really focus, because you are, astrology is an initiation. You are becoming a priest or a priestess. And you need to be up to that. It's a responsibility. Knowledge is a responsibility. So take it seriously. And again, why? Why bother? What's good in about astrology? I think, to me, if I really put it down to a few words, why is it important? It's not just about knowing when Mercury is retrograde or when, there's a Mars transit, but understanding that these cycles do matter. I believe this, this is something I said today. The day astrology is recognized by the mainstream will mark a cultural revolution, because this will be a collective acknowledgement that the universe is not random and a random occurrence, but it is an intelligent design. And that is suddenly gonna give and make sense. People who are disoriented, who think this is all a mistake, that their suffering is random, astrology can finally provide this objectivity and think about it on a large scale level, how this can change the collective way of thinking and approaching life. So that's why we're here, to keep that flame burning. And, I would like not just to talk about how great astrology and how important it is and how we need to pledge to it, but just shows how it works, the magic of this practice. So I don't know if you learned today, this lady, Karen McDougall, is another Trump mistress. And she comes into collective consciousness today suing Trump because she wants to talk about their affair. She's a Playboy model, and she wants to reveal to the world that basically he cheated on his wife with her. Now, we're not talking about the gossip. We know that Trump is what he is. But the timing of this is really uncanny if we look at it astrologically. She's born in 1971. And this means she's about to be 47 years old, and 47 is a year when it's a Mars year, because it's the year where we have our solar and Mars return simultaneously. So as she's an Aries, she's born as an Aries, and the ruler of Aries is Mars in Capricorn squaring her sun, Chiron. Talk about Chiron in Aries. So she's that warrior, you know, as much as she's a model, there's a lot of anger here. And there's a lot of anger at man. Sun in Aries, Chiron in Aries, and Mars in Capricorn, authority figures. So when, of all times, you know, she didn't come through during the campaign, she's coming through now, when there's a return of her Mars and Sun. Isn't that interesting? So we'll see what happens, but it tells us again, astrology gives meaning to every moment. What is your chart? Your chart is a date and a place. A transit is a date and a place. So when these times coincide and synchronize, stuff happens. We call this activations. And you bet she's activated. Now Mars will square her sun. Her sun will return. You'll hear about her in the coming days, and hopefully, you know, she's not gonna disappear mysteriously. Now, another funny and crazy circumstance. This is the chart of Percival Lowell, and I live in Arizona, close to Flagstaff, where we have the Lowell Observatory, and this is where Pluto was discovered. Now, Percival was a crazy scientist who was talking about people living on Mars. He's obviously a very well-known astronomer, but he was a little bit out of the box in, you know, having crazy theories that some people didn't take very seriously. But one of the things he said is that there is a ninth planet. You know, there is another planet, and beyond Neptune. That was in the end of the 18th century, beginning of the 20th century, end of 19th, beginning of 20th. And he said there is, you know, a planet, I'm pretty sure, and he took pictures that later, only later, were revealed to have shown Pluto. But interestingly, he died in 1916, before Pluto was discovered. And yet, if we look at this chart, I'm just making sure you all can see the chart, because I'm having weird notification from Zoom. You all can see everything. Okay, great. So he died in 1916, and Pluto was discovered in 1930. Now, look, the inner wheel is his chart. Guess what is on his ascendant? Like, look at this Pluto right on his ascendant. And that guy was sure that Pluto would exist. Isn't that just uncanny? Not only that, the discovery of Pluto occurred when the transiting North Node was right on his Pluto. And the guy died. So his chart is actually activated posthumously. Our chart lives on even when we're not there. So you see his spirit and the labor of his work, you know, being gratified. And then you look at Pluto transit right on his IC, another angle opposing his moon, probably, you know, grieving, you know, from wherever he was, that he couldn't actually witness, you know, the occurrence here on Earth. Now, this doesn't stop here. Pluto's discovered in 1930, on 18th of February 1930, which is the day that actually the sun is aligned with Regulus, which is a fixed star that represents royalty. But they were asking for names. You know, what are we going to call this little thing? I know, at the edge of the universe, at the edge of the solar system. And, you know, they said, maybe we should name it Zeus, and maybe we should name it Minerva, and maybe we should name it this and that. And then a young girl from England, she's like 12 years old, and she loves mythology. And she says, you know, this star is far away, and it's kind of in the dark, and we don't see it, and it should be named after the Lord of the Underworld, which is Pluto. And this was accepted unanimously. You know, all other names were rejected but that. So this is the chart of the girl on the inner wheel, and that's the chart around it of the naming. Now look at Pluto. Where is Pluto when she's naming Pluto? It's exactly on her sun. The sun has to do with giving birth, right, with the baby. So you see that she comes up with the name as Pluto transits her sun. And she gains that notoriety. You know, she's the one, that little girl with, and at the day that this happens, the moon is also on Venus. So what this tells us is astrology is not random. There's intelligence in this universe. Things happen at certain time for very, very specific reasons. And if we only know when, and if we only know how to interpret that, we can go far. That's an example I used on my last video. Those of you who saw it may have looked at it, but I thought it was important to speak about it again. These are the two Nobel Prize winner, Kailash Satyarthi and Malala Yousafzai. So these two folks were the winners of the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014. Both of them worked to help children. He helped children escape child slavery and child labor, and she helped girls' education in Pakistan and Afghanistan, where girls are banned from schools. So she was shot because of her activism and recovered and became this famous spokesperson for for girls' education. Now, these two people live in different countries. She lives in Pakistan, he lives in India. Interesting polarity, because they used to be one country. He's a man, she's a woman. Now look at the suns. Their suns are exactly opposite. And their moons are exactly opposite. She's a sign Cancer, he's a sign Capricorn. She's a moon in Libra, he's a moon in Aries. The ruler of his sun is Saturn, and it conjuncts Mars. The ruler of her sun is the moon, and it conjuncts Mars. So the ruler of their suns, respectively, conjuncts Mars, and Mars has to do with activism. Again, can you make this up? This is synchronicity. This is stellar intelligence, cycles resonating with our existence. It's not so hard to think about it. If one day is the planet Earth spinning on itself, and 1 month is the moon spinning around the Earth, and 1 year is the Earth spinning around the sun. So our biological clock, our day, month, years are all regulated by planetary motion. Why is it so hard to think that Saturn spinning and Mars spinning and Venus spinning are not equally important? I don't know why it's so hard for people to actually acknowledge that astrology is, is very possible to the least. So I would like to leave you with, with these thoughts, and honor also yourself on this path. Remember that it's a risk. Being today an astrologer means that people will laugh at you. They won't understand you. You'll have to constantly explain what you're doing. It's not taken for granted, but you know that you're doing something truthful. And if you have the courage to not just go, and please people, but actually be loyal to your truth, it will shine its light upon you. I would like to encourage you also on Astrology Day to join the OPA raffle. You can go to the OPA website and click on the banner, and you can celebrate, but also win many prizes, including a 101 workshop with Kaypacha, but also readings with astrologers, with Rick Levine, and workshops and books, and really the labor of many wonderful astrologers. So thank you, everyone, and cheers.
Thank you, Maurice. And I think that one reason that not everybody appreciates astrology is that it gives Maurice a job to do.
It keeps me busy, you bet.
Yeah. Okay. Well, certainly today, last but not least, we have Julia's from down under, the land down under in Australia, talking about both. We know, and this is what's so big about 2018, is Chiron is changing signs and Uranus is changing signs. And this is not just an every year kind of event to have two personal planets be changing signs at the same time. So Julia wants to talk to us about just what that means for astrology. Julia, you're on.
Hello, guys. Happy Astrology Day, everyone. Dream team. Gosh, listening to all of you talk, there's just so much. Let's say we can extrapolate in every part. Just Maurice talking about Pluto and what's that place called? The Flagstaff Observatory is amazing in Sedona. I remember being there and having so many insights and writing about. Just one thing I wanted to add to that was in Percival's chart, when Pluto had its flyby, was it last year or the year before? Pluto was on Percival's, midheaven. So, like the stories never stop happening. The cosmos never stops turning. The insights never stop happening. That's why we love it so much. It keeps us on our toes. It keeps us connected. There's nothing better that I know of to keep us connected to, being living beings. The cosmos is much more alive and it's forever. So, no wonder we're so inspired by it, and we keep doing it. We keep using it. Being connected to some of the best people I know, the most intelligent people I know are astrologers as well. And I think as we move into Chiron in Aries and Uranus in Taurus, as we know, Chiron is about, it's the archetype of the stranger, the weirdo, the outcast, the one that we kind of don't understand. Some of us have crossed that bridge to go there to learn more astrology and that type of thing. And as Chiron goes into Aries, the alternatives that have been, let's say, churning up in our system over Chiron in Pisces over this last, 8 years or, now I can't remember, 8 years or 9 years or something, 7 years, is this churning that there's more to the world. There's a better way of healing ourselves. There's alternatives in the system. We're still dealing with the alternatives in the system, let's say like medical marijuana, that is in Australia still being, it's recognized as being very helpful to many, many people, but it's still illegal. Like what makes sense, but the pharmaceutical stuff is still illegal. Now, I think astrology can be looked at in that way, in a similar way as well. It's still it's churned up a lot of people. It's like, this stuff is really interesting, but am I sure? Am I wonder, I'm still not sure. So Chiron in Aries, it's like, hey, you know what? I do astrology. What does it mean to, do astrology? It's going to become more the norm than the alternative, right? Like astrology now is somewhat an alternative to the muggles, you know, like that's weird stuff that, you know, I'm really not sure about it. But the combination of Chiron in Aries and Uranus in Taurus, which I'll speak a bit more in a bit, imagine it's going to become more normal to be like, it's like, you don't know astrology? What's wrong with you? You know, and that's, you know, that's something that we can really kind of look towards and look forward to as astrologers. You know, we plan our time with the astrology of the time. You know, as Maurice was saying, astrology is ruled by Uranus. That's perhaps much more in the modern context. And of course, yes, we're living in the modern world. But in the ancient world, it was before Uranus's discovery, was Mercury ruled astrology as well. So we connect both of those together, or I do anyway. So, of course, Mercury is the psychopomp that connects all of our information to the cosmos and back again. And Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. So we can't use, let's say, Mercury because it moves too fast as an indicator of something so vast as astrology. I like to actually see astrology because it's of its very cosmic connections, also is very Neptunian. And its profound sort of, let's say, connection and what it does to people is very Plutonic. So I see all the outer planets as actually somewhat rulers of astrology. But if we look at Uranus in Taurus coming in as well, you know, what's Uranus about? It's also a maverick and a radical, a change agent. We know that what astrology has done for anyone that's touched, you know, astrology and it's infiltrated your life, it's changed your life forever. You know, there's very few people that will kind of just go, oh, I can't get into that. That doesn't make sense to me. It happens occasionally, but most of us just want to go further. And so it excites us, it entices us to do more things. So as we get into Uranus into Taurus, Taurus is all about grounding. It's about security. It's about, let's say, inner talents and gifts. And we can look at astrology as a cosmic gift that we're going to nurture more. We're going to, let's say, protect more. Because what Uranus, let's go back a bit, Uranus in Pisces. No, hang on. Yeah, Uranus in Pisces. So before Aries, Uranus in Pisces really churned up for us the information highway, the connectivity of astrologers around the world through social media, as well as, let's say, connect or putting out there the idea of the co-creative spirit of astrology, that it's a co-creative science. It's not just a kind of a Bible that's been set down or given to us to just kind of read and follow the instructions. It's a living thing. And so the co-creative spirit of Uranus in Pisces opened that up to the world through social media, connected all of us astrologers together and so on. Through Uranus in Aries, what has it done for everyone's an astrologer. Everyone's, in a sense, got an identity, is out there, good and bad. People that aren't even astrologers are, saying that they're astrologers. There's all kinds of chaos going on in that sort of department. So what we can kind of look forward to with Uranus in Taurus and Chiron in Aries is, well, let's just stick to Uranus in Taurus, is the homing in of astrology as being embodied further and making a lot more sense, not some kind of a weird science that we don't know what it is, but it's almost like it's a living thing. It's in our bodies. It's part of our system. It's part of the food we eat, so to speak. And as astrologers, we're going to be, let's say, protecting that more. As Maurice was saying, giving it more of a home, giving it, more better schooling. It's kind of wild out there at the moment, and we need to let people know that astrology takes time to learn. This is a Taurian thing. It takes time to absorb. It is an incredible gift, and we're all, let's say, somehow programmed to use it. But we need to understand it. Like today on the equinox, we need to understand it from the foundation level. We need to understand it not just by, sign and archetype. And where does that come from? Where does that come from? What's that tied to? The tropical zodiac is tied to the seasons. There's so much richness in every part that we look at. For instance, today, again, the equinox, it's not so much about the turning. The earth turns every day and the sun actually doesn't move through the signs. We are moving and tilting, right? So the fundamentals of the way the planetary system works is at the basis of our astrology and what we know. So understand the turning, the tilting, the let's say sacred astronomy, as some of our agents, very much connect to, as an important part of understanding why astrologers come up with what they do. About understanding what's happening, and why we say, Uranus in Taurus means this. There's so many things to the story. So I would just kind of, slow everyone down a bit, with the learning, with the observing, with the, take time to sit outside and observe the stars and know how they move and all that type of thing. It is an incredible gift. It's a wonderful thing to be part of. What can I say? Again, there's so many things. Use it as, it's an incredible resource, but you've got to know your tools. To be a talented astrologer, let's say someone that, people trust and work with and, really have a high regard for, is like, you've got to use good tools too. So if you're going to be an astrologer, get good tools, get good training. And, I invite you to come along with the dream team, with our journey, with the rest of us that are doing it, in love with astrology. So anyway, that's my take. There's a lot more to say, but, I know there's a time restraint. Thanks, guys.
Yay. Thank you, Jules. Control Agent 12 from
That's why they call me.
That's right, baby. Oh my goodness. And I don't know if you've been seeing the chat, but we are very sorry to announce that Tim Holleran, another dream team, amazing astrologer, at the last minute, just like minutes before we began the webinar, he broke his hand. And so if you can send many blessings, healing energy to Tim, that would be wonderful. And he was going to be telling us more about what a gift astrology is to humanity. And I think that we can all agree with that. And speaking of gifts, we, New Paradigm Astrology, have a gift for you. So I want to share my screen and tell you what we are going to do for you today. Yes, for you today. So you got to hang in there and check this out. Let me share my screen. And Danny put a great amount of work into this. See how beautiful it is. This is our Astrology Day special, everybody. Just today, we are going to be making a special offer that I'm going to get down to at the bottom. But first, one of the things that it includes is everything you need to know about Uranus in Taurus. I don't know if we had a few hundred people take part in our Saturn e-course. It was 8 weeks, January and February, where we went all through Saturn. And what we did was we took each week and we uploaded a special video on a particular aspect of, okay, good, Saturn. So this May, Uranus will be entering the sign of Taurus for the first time since 1935. What will happen? What does it mean? How can we best manage and take advantage of the new energy? Here's what we're going to be doing. 7 each one, myself and each one of the dream team are going to upload a video, some on Friday, some on Saturday, some on Sunday. So you get to watch all about a different aspect of Uranus. And then we're going to give you a worksheet that you can like use to contemplate where's Uranus in my chart and what's Uranus doing, you know, and where's Taurus and what's planets are as aspecting. You can go through this whole worksheet through the whole week. And then on Saturday, we are all going to get online similar to this webinar, and we're going to answer your questions. And throughout the whole week, there's an online forum, and we're all going to be on the forum. This is going to be super cool, man. Uranus is technology, and we are going to use the frickin' technology. Yeah. So it's going to be an amazing course. And what do you think something like that goes for? Well, let's hear it. Let's look at it. I'm going to be talking about it in your natal chart. Timothy will be talking about divine dissatisfaction. Soul is going to be talking about the challenge of individuation and the need for isolation. Maurice, the marriage between mind and body. Of course, Jules, agent of change. Christine is going to take it through the houses. And last but not least, Ari Moshe is going to be talking about freedom of the now. So you're going to get all that information. And what do you think something like that is going to go for, right? 7 astrologers full-time at your bidding, at your service, giving them. So we're going to give it to everybody in the New Paradigm Astrology community for free. We're just excited about astrology, and we want to share it with as many people as we can. So what we're doing, we're going to give you guys, if you're not in the community now, we want to give you a special chance to join. We're going to give you 2 free months in the community, and it's $20 a month. So that's $40. We're going to give you this Uranus and Taurus, you know, worth like $4.95, absolutely free. And the Dream Team is also going to be giving 20% off of their readings, okay, for people that sign up for those readings and sign up for the community today. Yeah. And I don't know if you're not familiar with the community. I did 3 astrology courses. They were webinars, 2 hours a week for 8 weeks. So I've got these 3 courses, Astrology 101, 201, and 301. We give you one every month so you can learn astrology at your own pace. Then every week, either myself or a Dream Team member uploads a video. So we've got like 50, we have a library of over 50 videos. You can learn about medical astrology, sidereal astrology, this planet, that planet, this, I mean, you can learn, oh my God. You got enough videos. You'll never run out of watching videos. There's a forum. We have this online forum. We're going to have a special forum for Uranus, okay? But there's also this general where you can ask any of us questions about anything, any time of the day or night. We got like 1,000 people in this community, so you can make a whole bunch of friends. We've got a private Facebook group. You can connect with all these people and upload pictures of yourself or whatever you want to do all the time, you know, with the whole community. It's amazing. You know, I even had some people get married that met at one of my festivals. Yeah. I mean, this kind of stuff can change your life, man. So anyway, you know, I'm excited. Here we go. You can get the year-long membership. It's usually $200. You get the Uranus Intensive for like $4.95. You get 20% off. An average reading is like $250, right? So it's like today, like right now, all right, you know, we're going to put the link in the chat box, all right? The link is in the chat box. Thank you, Danny. And you can just, jump on and you can click, right? So today you can get, instead of paying $745 for Uranus, for readings, for getting in the community, we're going to pop it down to a freaking $160 just to celebrate Astrology Day, to celebrate astrology, to celebrate Uranus, which rules Aquarius and has to do with community, and of course, the new paradigm. So that is what I wanted to share with you before, before we close, just give you an idea. We are all super excited about this Uranus, the Uranus entering Taurus workshop. What have you got, Maurice? The hell is that thing? You guys can all turn on your microphones. We can all give a nice song goodbye or something. I don't have to just.
Everybody's happy.
Oh.
Is that your voodoo doll?
That's the mascot.
Scorpio?
Wow.
It's a lion. It's Kaypacha when he gained some weight.
Well, that's coming, I'll tell you. All right, there's that link over there in the chat box. You guys go for it. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be posting the page for the link. We're going to be emailing it out to you because you signed up. Thank you very much for signing up. We're going to be putting this link out, and we're going to keep the doors open. And click that link, join the community until midnight tomorrow, March 21st, Pacific Daylight Time. Okay, you've got from now until then to join up, and we're gonna just have a blast together. And I just want you guys want to say anything closing? We can go around the circle, maybe one at a time, or you all want to say something at the same time?
Where's the circle start?
Right here.
With you, yeah.
The same order of speaking, maybe.
Yeah, baby.
Well, I'm so excited for Astrology Day. And I just really want to invite everyone that isn't yet a member to please join us, because we have a really special community. Really, you'll go from like 0 to like the universe, whatever. And Ari Moshe, I hope for our Uranus class you'll bring your little spiral there, because I think that's the cutting edge of astrology teaching right there.
This is just the beginning. All of you who asked questions that didn't get answered, please know that we have a forum, and we absolutely love the opportunity to drop in, be present for your questions, and to serve you, help your learning. I also see someone asked, how do you switch from monthly to yearly? So maybe contact Danielle, administrator, email at NPA, and she can help you with that question.
We have to introduce Daniela. Daniela is our amazing organizer of everything cool at New Paradigm Astrology. She just came on board, and she's going to change the whole future.
And we're going to leak the information that we're going to have a special course about astrology also for member very soon. But we're not allowed to talk about it yet.
Maurice, doggone it. God. Some guys are just born rebels,
Uranus in Taurus first.
Well, we just want to thank you once again. We hope to see you on the forum, on the Facebook page, in the community. I hope to bump into you at the airport or on the street or whatever. Come to a workshop and just keep going. We wish that all of you do more astrology with your friends and family, and just use it to bring understanding, compassion, love, and harmony to planet Earth. That is what it's all about. So, namaste.
The way of the future.
Aloha.
Cheers.
So much
love. All right.
Happy Astrology Day.
Happy astrology.
Happy
Day.
Astrology, everyone.
All right, I stopped recording. I'm going to